Hi, hello. So we saw in the previous videos we could use adapt component or BMC out of the box component because it's exactly the same thing. Or we could use a third-party vendor npm library. But sometimes you need in your code to refer to a picture, a font, this kind of thing. So we are going to see how we can do that. So here I got a picture. Picture from CD D20 found on Pixabay, and I'm going to rename it fairytale.jpg, and I want to use that inside a view component. So how can we do that? So first of all, I'm going to create a view component. So I'm using WebStorm internal terminal for that. So I'm going to need to go inside the bundle web app folder in order to create a new view component. As always, you need to be sure that the SDK is correctly set. So let's see really quick. So here it's set to the 2008, which is not the right one. I want the one from 2105. So you can do that using set command from Windows or export for Mac. Let's do that for the other terminal as well. And I'm going now to create my view component. So I'm going to use yarn run and GG rx view component, and I'm going to call it sample picture. So let's try in dry run first. So just going bundle, source, web app, libs, and inside view components. So here everything seems correct. So I'm going to try without the dry run, so it's going to create and modify the files. And here it's done, and I should see my new view component. So I want to display it inside, of course, at runtime. I want to display my picture somehow. I want to have something like image source. So its name is fairytale.jpg. I want to display it somehow, something like this. So how can we do that? So the recommended way is that we have an asset folder inside the next library, and this asset folder is going to be bundled inside your application or library at runtime. So we are going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it pictures. I'm going to copy my picture inside of it. And then I will need to refer to this picture, of course. So how do we know that we need to have our resources, whether they are like pictures, font, it could be anything, it could be a JavaScript library, it could be CSS, style sheet. Well, it's because in the angular.json from the main bundle, we have the same way we had a section for styles, we have a section for assets. And so we have already a long set of assets, and one of them is very interesting, is the one for the assets folder. So lib, comme example, sample app, source, lib, assets. So it's going to copy whatever is inside this folder and subfolders, and it's going to copy them inside the application bundle under sample app resources folder. So let's build and let's see how it works. So I'm going to launch the build. I'm going to pause. I'm just going to do maven clean install. Actually, I'm going to export and deploy. So I'm going to pause the video during the build, and I'm going to resume it when it's done. Okay, so the build has finished. Let's go inside, oops, not the right bundle. Sample application, we're going to create a view, which is test picture. We should have our view component somewhere. Sample picture. We need a message. There should be a picture. And let's save and let's see our view. So of course we don't have a picture because the path is obviously not correct. And let's see what's going on. Okay, so here we are, and let's try to find our image. So of course fairy tale is not pointing to something good, and here is the right path actually. So I'm going to put the right path directly. So here is the right path. As you can see, I've got my picture. So the right path is actually the Innovation Studio server with the port, the bundle ID, and then you've got the path, scripts, asset, resources, and then that's a root path pretty much up until the resources. If you remember, we have here assets, lib, sample app, resources. So we have this resources folder. And here we have resources, and then pictures and fairytale.jpg is a path where you have your assets. So pictures, fairytale.jpg. So of course I don't need really this domain because it's going to be local. So I can just do something like this. So I could just take this one, go here, replace it, and now I should be able to see my picture, to access my. So how does it work? So if we go inside this folder, which contains the build file from Angular that we are going to copy later. So you can see that we have this tab shells asset folder. In libs we have a sample app folder, and inside you have your resources, pictures, and fairytale.jpg. So that's basically what is done in angular.json. So one word of caution, by the way, the output is very important for later. You need to have your artifact ID here, your bundle artifact ID. So it's here set by default. If you want to know what is the artifact ID, you can find it in several places. You can find it, I think, in the package.json from the main library. So sample app. So this is very important. You should not have like come example sample app. You should have sample app because later when Maven is going to copy the files that are necessary for the bundle, it will look for this specific path to copy. So libs, the name of your application or library, which will be sample app, and then whatever is inside of it. So just be sure not to change anything here, or if you add something else, which is totally fine, be sure just to keep the same output. So anyway, so here we are good. We should have our path to our picture. So let's just test. So I'm going to deploy it again. So I'm going to pause the video again, and I'm going to resume it when everything is deployed. Okay, so the bundle has been built and deployed. Let's go back here. Let's refresh the page. And this time the picture is displayed without even me cheating. So we are perfectly fine. But as we saw in previous videos, it is possible to launch the application in debug mode using npm start. So let's try to run our application in npm start. So once again, it's going to build. So I'm going to pause the video and I will resume it once it finished launching in debug mode. So the debug mode has been launched, which is just pretty much the ng-serve, and it's available on localhost 4200 like we saw before. So it launched a new tab. I'm going to copy the path to my view up until helix, paste it. I will have to log in again because it's another session. Here we go, and I don't see my picture. So why don't I see my picture this time? He could not find it. Wow. Okay, let's try to see what happened here. So we have our picture, everything seems fine, but he cannot find it. Why? Well, it's because the path to a picture, to a resource, to anything that is an asset is different for now when you are in production and when you're in development mode. So it can be a bit annoying, but you will have to know about that. So how can we fix this kind of thing? So first of all, let's see what is a real path. in this case. So the path, instead of being the full bundle ID, script, asset, resources, pictures, fairytale.jpg, this time it's a bit different. It's actually something like this. So let's try to copy this picture. Let's try to put another line. And the path this time is going to be this one. So it's /lx asset libs sample app resources picture fairytale.jpg. And if it's familiar, that's normal. That it's because it's pretty much the path that you have here in the this folder. So because the files have not been packaged, that's why the path is different. So now it's displayed properly. So that is a problem, because let's say that if you wanted to display this picture or load the resource, and so it works in debug and production mode, you would have maybe to have two pictures and to have like two different paths, and maybe a condition on whether Angular is running in development mode or production mode, and this is not really user friendly. So one solution I came up with in my test application that I described in another video is that I created a very simple service. So I'm going to create a service folder. And inside this service, I created a very simple service that I'm going to copy, which is named get asset path services service. So what it does, it's very simple. It's just looking if Angular is running in dev mode or not, and that's something coming from Angular. And if it is, it's creating the path to it's doing the right path. So here it's a path for when you are in development mode, and here it's a path when you are in production mode. So now you need to leverage this service, of course. So we have to go inside our component and inside our constructor. We are going to load it. So private so we're going to do something like this. And here we need to set asset path somewhere. So asset path, which would be a string. And what we are going to do is asset path equal get asset path service dot. And here you need to give your bundle ID. So here our bundle ID is come example sample app. So something like this. So once you got your asset path, what you can do, oops. So of course the debug mode is running right now. Yeah, I need to inject it somewhere. We'll see that later. So once you got your asset path, the only important thing that you have to think about now is what will be the right path for your picture, right? So the asset path goes until resources slash resources. So you need to go here, resources go here. So that means that this variable is going to replace up until resources slash. That means pretty much up until here. So something like this. Of course I don't need two anymore. And now, as you can see, it was complaining about injection because I did not import this service in the module. So we have to do that now, because here I need to inject it somewhere. So for that you have a couple of options. The first one, of course, is you can go in the service and say that it's for root, so it's going to be available for everyone. Or if you don't want to do that, you can just go to the module, your component module, and you could add it in your list of providers. So here it would be get asset path service. Going to save. So here I should detect it automatically, and actually it has been done, I didn't see it. And as you can see now, you got the correct picture and you've got the correct path. And here we are in debug mode. So let's stop the debug mode. And let's try if it works as well in production mode. So I'm going to build and deploy the bundle again. So I'm going to pause the video and resume it once it's done. Okay, so the bundle has been built and deployed. So of course, development has been stopped. I mean, I stopped the dev server, so this one is not going to work anymore. And if it still works with production, and you can see that in production it still works and the path is correct. So the story is, if you want to add, like, if you want to access resources like pictures, fonts, JavaScript script, CSS style sheets, you can do that using the assets folder. And that's a recommended way. It's going to be bundled inside your bundle, your application bundle. So that's a recommended way. You just need to be careful that the path to access those resources is going to change whether you are in production or debug mode for now. So you might want to have two paths, or do whatever I did, which is to detect that you are in dev mode and then you have a path that is a bit different, and use this path, different path inside when you load your resources, for example. So you can do something like this. So let's see what happens when the package is built. So we are going to go inside the package folder. We are going to open it inside Explorer. So I'm going to unzip it. I'm going here, I'm going to unzip the jar file containing the bundle. So here we have our web app folder. Inside of it we have our library, our application, CSS and JS files. So the CSS will contain, for example, the style sheets that we created earlier from our previous day. And you can see here as well we have an assets folder, and in its asset folder we have resources, pictures, and we have our pictures. So that's why it's very important to keep the correct path. So here, this output path needs to be exactly this one, especially with the artifact ID, which is sample app. Because if you don't do so, your resource is not going to be copied and bundled inside the application or library by Maven.